Welcome to the Business as Mission podcast, dedicated to those who long to see God glorified in business and the nations reached for Christ. Your host is Mike Bayer, longtime BAM leader and founder of Third Path Initiative, an online education resource for starting and growing BAM businesses around the world.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Business as Mission podcast. I am in Curitiba, Brazil, with some new friends. I'm going to make sure I'm saying this right. Joiaquim, yes. And his last name, they're both last name is Delmeda. They're married, but you're going to hear in a moment that the other guest has a professional name because she has a business that flows out of her art and her love for God, and that's Amanda Prusak.
Yes.
I'm working hard to get that right, and I've got Bob Bush here and Jonathan Brake from I'm trying to figure out where to attribute you guys, but from IBEC Ventures. So we're all down here and having a good time. We got a chance to meet Amanda yesterday. She started telling her story about her design work, and I'm not going to tell any more because I'll mess it up. So first of all, welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
And we're looking forward to it. So go back in history and tell us a little bit about how you guys knew each other. There's a little bit of a romance here. So we're going to let our listeners, you can get a cup of tea and listen to the romance, and then we'll get into the business aspect of her company and what she's doing. But tell us about you guys, the two of you.
Okay, so I'll start. Yeah. Since he's a gentleman, he lets me start. So we're both from Brazil. We're both PKs from the Foursquare Church. So both of our parents. So we heard about each other because also our sisters used to work for the Foursquare Church as well together. And they even had a plan. Maybe we can get Joiaquim and Amanda to date each other, because we were kind of searching, right, for our soulmates. Yeah.
And they had it all planned out for you.
They did, but they never told us. But what happened was I was going to the West. So I knew he existed, but never really. I talked to him, I think, once. But
because I'm older than her.
He's much older. He's 6 years older than me. But I do this joke. So I was going to the West to be an au pair, to be a babysitter so I could learn English. That was a really, really big dream for me, to learn English. And I found out, and I also went there to study as well. So I found out that he was going to the U.S. on the next day. And I'm like, that's the Brazilian I'm going to call if I have any problem. That's it. Because I knew he went to the U.S. many times. That was my first time on an airplane going to the U.S. So I just remember talking to him on MSN, right? Chatting like, hey, I'm going to the U.S. and you're going as well. So that's when we connected in 2007.
Yes, correct.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and when we moved there, I moved to California to live with my sister, and she moved to New Jersey, Maplewood, I think.
Maplewood, because I wanted to study in New York.
And then we start to talk almost every day over phone, because she doesn't know how to cook.
I didn't know how to cook. No.
She doesn't know how to cook Brazilian beans. So,
yeah.
And I have learned with my mom.
Yes.
And then I taught her how to do Brazilian beans.
With a broken leg?
And I was in the hospital because I broke my leg in a trampoline in the US, playing with friends. And then she called me. I was in the waiting room to check what happened with my leg. And she called me and said, okay, let's teach you how to do Brazilian beans.
And he stayed on the phone with me.
1 hour, maybe.
The whole time you were cooking?
The whole time we were cooking. Yeah. I didn't know he was in the hospital.
I didn't say anything.
You had a broken leg and teaching me how to do Brazilian beans.
Yeah, so that's how we start to connect it.
Yeah, so then after a year of the program I had a month off. He said, so we are crossed, right?
You said.
So I said, no, you said. He said, you should come.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
No, he said, you should come to California. My sister lives here, so we could have a trip here and you can get to know California. I was like, Dad, this guy invited me. I'm on the phone with my dad. I was like, this guy, he invited me, but my dad knew him because he was part of, my dad was a pastor and he was a youth leader. So my dad knew him. But my dad has never let me travel before, or with someone I was dating, or even with people from church. Like if there were guys together, my dad never let me travel with them. I was so mad with my dad. And then when I told my dad, may I go with Joiaquim? And he's like, sure, I trust Joiaquim. And I was like, what?
Poor judgment.
I was like, what? Yeah, so, but and then I invited 2 more friends.
Yeah, that's true.
And we went on the whole coast of California.
33,000 miles
a whole month.
In a month.
Unbelievable. That's
yes.
Golly.
And he had a broken leg.
Yeah, the whole time.
He was driving the whole time, so he didn't only use, of course, the leg that was not broken to drive. So then the last days, my friends left. Then we had a date. Then we fell in love in the U.S. That's.
Now, were you married in the U.S. or did you come?
No,
you came back
moved
here.
Back, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
We moved back, and a year later.
Yeah, a year and a couple months later.
A year and 4 months. We were married, and then we went back to the U.S.
Okay.
Okay, there's a long story. You tell us this is too much.
We wanted to hear that. That's part of the story. And when you started sharing a little bit of it yesterday at lunch, I thought our listeners need to hear how you guys met, how you fell in love, because it's part of the story. Now, somewhere along the way, you discovered that you had art talent, and I think you were saying as a child you really began to do art. So talk about that discovery, how God showed you that was a gift He'd given you. And then move into, how did you decide to turn that into a business? Because you went to the U.S. to study as an au pair in order to learn English better. And somewhere you transitioned to this high-end fashion designer who has committed her business for breaking the chains of human trafficking, which is a beautiful story. So that's the headline. Tell us how it worked.
Well, you beautifully said. Thank you so much. As a little girl, I liked drawing, and in my family, my dad's family, they would meet for weekends for Sunday lunch every single Sunday, and they always had new clothes on. I thought that was normal, I thought that was normal. Oh, I'm gonna buy new clothes. I'm gonna get my nails done and hair done, just to have lunch as this huge gathering of like 30, 40 people every Sunday. And I thought, that's normal. You always get new clothes. So that was normal for me, to not to always have new clothes, but to have this, clothes, being around new clothes always. So I liked drawing clothes. I liked making clothes for my dolls. I always did this since a little girl. But another thing that I really wanted was to do good for other people. Because when missionaries came to my church, especially from Africa, they will come dressed in those beautiful printed gowns. And that for me was like, wow, I want to dress like these people. And they will share how much they helped other people. And that for me was huge. So for me it was like, I want to do good. So in order for me to do good, I have to be a missionary. But I still like fashion. And then my dad was like, no, you're gonna have to go to a university first. You can do that maybe later, but you have to study first. Then I was like, okay, I'll choose fashion then. So I chose fashion, but I still had that in the back of my mind, like, how can I do good? Because fashion is not good, right?
Interesting.
For me.
But you loved it.
I loved it, but I thought it was like there was this huge separation. I didn't know about God's beauty. I saw it, but I couldn't recognize it, that God created beauty, right? So what I did is I went to the university, then I also studied a little bit in New York, as I told you, at FIT. But I still had this thing, and one day I think I was in the US, I watched a movie. And in this movie, this woman, a young mom, a solo mom, she wanted to provide for her son and also her mom. She lived with her mom, but she had no job. And what she did, she started dating this guy while she was looking for a job for a long time. She dated this guy, and then this guy comes to her and he says, I have a job for you, but it's outside of the country. And then it's your dream. You can send money for your family, and that's it, you're set up. And she accepted. So she went to another country with this guy, which was her trusty boyfriend. And as soon as she gets there, he takes her passport away, and she's trapped with many other women. And then they throw her on the floor, and then they abuse her in a way that I could never think it was possible with a human being. Mm. And I was pretty young, and as I told you, I was always in a Christian environment. So watching this movie for me, I was like, what is this? What is this? So this was in my mind. This was before 2011. And this stayed on my head, and actually she took her life away later on. Mm. But I don't know, this movie stayed in my mind, but I didn't know what it was. And then one day, after my husband actually got a scholarship to go to a Bible college in the US. So that's why we got married in Brazil, and we went back to the US, because he was actually wanting to become a pastor, but he was always an IT guy. So the listener is a BAMer. Here the listener already gets what we're talking about, right? So I was at his college, and this guy comes to me, and he shares a story, and he's like, Amanda, I want to invite you to do a fashion show. And I was not a fashion designer yet. I just had graduated and went to the US. As soon as I graduated, we got married and went to the US. So this other guy from the college said, I want to do a fashion show here at the college to raise funds, and I want you to do a collection. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna become a fashion designer finally in the US.
In Eugene.
In Eugene, Oregon.
Oh,
That's okay. Wow. You're thinking New York, okay?
Yeah.
Babe, what did you do? They were imagining New York.
No, Eugene, Oregon.
I was thinking New York too. No, and then you said that. Like, okay, I get it.
Thank you, yeah. But well, for me it was huge because it was not Brazil, so yeah. So what happened is then he shares a story with me that he went to do a mission trip in Mexico, and for the whole week he played with the little girl, and by the end of that trip the girl's mom came to him and said, do you want to buy her and take her with you? And he's like, oh no, oh my God, no, I don't want to buy her. And then he told me, and this is called human trafficking. Then I was like, oh my God, that was the movie I watched, when people are sold. And I was like, this is crazy. And then he invited me, do you want to do a fashion show to raise funds for this ranch that help women who used to be trafficked to be relocated into society? Do you want to do a fashion show to raise funds for that? And I was like, yes.
Yeah, as you're telling the story, I just keep thinking about how God takes these pieces of the puzzle that don't seem to fit. I mean, they're in your head, they're in your heart.
Yes.
But He brings it together, and all of a sudden it's like, that's what you have for me, and that's one of the best illustrations of that I've ever heard. So, wow.
Yeah. So then I told you yesterday that my greatest dream to become a fashion designer was to become a missionary, and also was to get married. That one I got it.
You had one done.
Yeah, I had one done. And then those other two, they came together. You know. So, and it was when I had the least in my life, because we had no money, I had no help, I didn't know any seamstress over there, of course, and even the language, I only knew English for a year. So the person could tell me, like, hello, how are you? I was like, yeah, fine. But if the person said, how are you doing? I was like, what did you say? I have no idea. So I didn't have like my mom to help me to sew a button or anything. But and then we had this community. Then my sister-in-law sent me all fabrics from Brazil, and I was learning how to sew as well and make patterns. So I did a whole collection by myself in our college apartment, and it was great. Like the fashion show was amazing in this huge setup, a huge runway, and the line outside was enormous, like waiting for the show. Was a true fashion show. There was more other fashions coming, but we raised funds for that range, and that range is still working, still helping other women until today. It's called Range Hope in Oregon.
Wow.
Yes.
So that's where all the seeds were planted, began to bear fruit.
Yes.
What are you thinking, Joiaquim, as you're looking at this? Are you like, I get it, I understand it, or are you sort of watching, God, what are you doing here?
I think we need to just go back a little bit, because Dress for Freedom is something that is our dream, is our baby. And when Amanda told me I want to be a pastor, because I grew up as a PK and I wanted to do good. And the only way I knew to do good is to become a pastor. That's why I moved to Eugene. I got a scholarship there to study pastoral studies, and then because of all of that. But I'm a businessman, so it was hard for me to transition and understand why God sent me all this path to learn theology, and then now I'm working with IT again. So what happened in my history, in my life, was I also studied at Fuller. I was doing a master's degree in intercultural studies, and I think it was my first term at Fuller. I read a book called Let Your Life Speak from J. Palmer. J. Palmer. And he asks you, because it's about like, what I want to do for you, God. What's my purpose on life? This is a question that everybody does. And I also was doing this question, why God? I left my job in a good company. I worked for Electrolux first. I was in a good path to become a manager, and then I gave up everything to become a college student again. I was 30 years old. And then this book, the Dr. Palmer encourages us to try to recall your earliest memory as a child. What do you enjoy to do? What brings you joy and you're happy? And then I did the exercise, and my earliest memory that something I did was selling popsicles on the street of Brazil. And also another business, micro business, I was like maybe 7, selling popsicles, and also to do kites to sell to people. And also when we went to camp retreats in the church, there's no automatic door opening, gate opening. So we need to open the gate manually. So what I do, I used to stay outside and close the gate and wait for a car to come. And then I opened the gate and they gave me quarters.
I love it.
So I was like 7, 8 years old. And then this book called, Joiaquim, I call you to be a businessman. I not call you to be a pastor. It's good, you have the knowledge, you learn, you're still learning. I still learning in a good institution, but God brought me this all the way and brought me back, because when we moved to Brazil, I was trying to work in a church environment, but I didn't fit there. It's not my gig. It's not my people. So nothing wrong happened. Just I didn't fit there. And then I started to realize, and then my daughter was about to born, it was 2017.
Yeah.
And then we need to make money. I need to make money to supply, to make a life for my family, to make a living for my family. And then I thought, the only thing I know how to do is work with technology. So, and then God called me back to the marketplace. And then today I work at Volvo Group. I'm a manager, I'm digital product owner there. I oversees Latin America for part sales used trucks. So this is interesting because all of that is leading me to become a better businessman in order to support Dress for Freedom. So it's all connected. When you said God brings all that together, it's amazing how we see the small little things coming into place. Today I'm happy to share this story.
Yeah.
but it was hard.
It was hard.
I just, when you talk, we always talk about the victory side.
Yeah.
But there's so much pain on all this journey. There's so much cry and lament and doubts. When I sit there, I say, God, some things doesn't work. I don't have money to buy food for my daughter. What am I gonna do tomorrow? So,
it is a painful time, and I think all of us sitting around this table would say we've been there. I mean, your story is very similar to mine, to Jonathan's, to Bob's. I mean, so you're in good company. But you're right. I think many of our listeners would say, when God began to work in me and lead me to what He had, it required a leaving behind of things I knew and thought was right. And so, you're definitely not alone with that.
That's why I want to bring this story, because the people who listen there, maybe you are in the middle of this turmoil. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I don't have words to say. I just want to share my story to encourage. There's slight, even though if you didn't see today, one day we will see that. So,
well, isn't that the devil's great lie, right? You're the only one.
Yes.
And when you suddenly realize, Joiaquim went through that, and Jonathan went through that, and Mike went through that. I mean, all of a sudden you're not alone anymore, and it's that's more important, I think, than having a word. It's just knowing that there are people that have experienced it, and God has been faithful to them. So, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
We'll pause here for a brief message. What if you're not a founder or an entrepreneur? Is there a role in business as mission for you? Well, find out more by taking the online course, How to Be a Kingdom Employee, or enroll in the entire Certified Kingdom Employee track at thirdpathinitiative.com/courses.
So, somewhere along the line, you took the movie that you saw, and you took the fashion show and the art talent, and obviously a very loving and supportive husband who is committed to his family and loves the Lord. I mean, this is a movie. we need to,
I feel like it.
Forget the podcast. We need a movie here. But so where did the idea of Dress for Freedom come from? I mean, obviously you had the talent, you had the passion, you had the support. Your husband's with you. You guys are walking together. You've got this daughter, which, by the way, how did the ballet recital go?
Oh, yeah, wow, really well. That was,
good.
Yes, she did great.
So how did the business come out of this?
Yeah. So one thing that truly changed my life was, I get emotional about it. Since I was born going to the church every Sunday, and in Brazil you go to the church. You can go every day. There are services every day, okay? But I always loved the church. I still love the church. But one thing I didn't know was how to get to know the Lord for myself. I knew the God that my dad and my mom served, and I liked Him. But when we went to this college, I actually really want to say that was New Hope Christian College with Pastor Wayne Cordero. He taught us. I was not at the college. I was studying fashion. But my life was so changed because he taught us one thing: how to read the Bible every day. That's it. How to do the SOAP method. And here I was, youngly, I don't know that word, just got married, and I had so much time, right? So what I did was I sat down every day on a desk. I opened my Bible, and I read the Bible 1-2 hours, sometimes even 3 hours a day. And then I felt like every single morning the Lord was waiting for me on that table to tell me something new.
He was.
Yeah.
And that completely changed my life. That when I started asking the questions, what is my purpose? Why do I live? And the thing is, I started finding out the answers. I found out that God, that you can ask questions, and if you're quiet and you listen, He will answer. So, I did 3 or 4 collections as Amanda Prusak, right, in the U.S., and they were small, but it went really well. But I felt like it should go bigger than me. It should go way farther. So that's when we decided that we should go back to Brazil because there are many people in vulnerability here, and we started Dress for Freedom. The dress is very clear, it's beauty. As I learned with Mats Tunehag, God loves beauty. I remember exactly when he said that to me. I had never heard that before. It sounds like so normal, isn't that? Well, of course he does. But when he told me that, so he told me just if for me to create beauty was already awesome because God did that. Why did God make the roses so perfectly beautiful? He cares about beauty. And that it took me a while to learn that. It was not like he said it and I was like, I got it. No, it took me a while to get it. So the Dress for Freedom is first beauty. So when you see our clothes, because it's a fashion brand, when you see our clothes, you like it because it's beautiful. That's it. But and then when you find out about it, then you like it even more. But first because it's beautiful. And then and high quality. Our seams are all French seams, so you don't see the seams. It's really high quality. And then so that's the dress. For it's when we talk about human trafficking. That's what we're doing right now. So you think in a podcast you're going to hear about fashion. We're talking about human trafficking, and we need to tell people what it is so we can solve the problem. So when we're in a fashion magazine like Vogue, when we're in a fashion show, in a fashion settings, we always talk about human trafficking. But not saying, look how bad it is. Yes, it's bad, but look, you can do a difference. You can change it. And then freedom, the freedom is for us to give job opportunities to women in vulnerability. For example, so we partner now with organizations that give training to women. So for embroidery, but and then it's all high quality embroidery and also sewing. And in the beginning, I started with one seamstress, because everywhere I went, like, I want to start a fashion brand. They're like, no. And then this one seamstress, she was starting to learn how to sew. And she told me yes, and she had a sewing machine. So I was like, okay, let's do it, both of us. It took us like 9 months to do 25 items. Today I do that maybe in a day, like, right? But God was bringing freedom to me and to her. As I started finding out her story has all to do with freedom, with what we're talking about. And today, she's still with us. She went to 2 universities. She is the one sewing the best than anyone I know, and she is training other women. And she's with us since 2017.
Wow.
So, yes.
And how many women work with you all together?
So we don't have women hired. So what we do is we pay them for collections.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the future. We want to have all these women hired.
So,
but for this collection, for example, was 7 women received training for this collection, which is called Free Butterfly. Free Butterfly.
Okay, yes. So and I don't know much about fashion, as you can tell by looking how I'm dressed. I love the concept, and my daughters love it. My wife loves it. So, and I see the connection, how it's all coming together, right? So there's beauty, there's the doing it for the trafficking victims and providing a way out and the freedom that comes with it. I mean, it's a beautiful story. The name really is perfect. So how have you sold the product, and how will you be selling? I'm setting you up because you're going to America, not going to America, but you're going to be opening your lines of product in America soon. So talk about that transition and where you're going.
Yeah, so right now we only sell on high-end stores in Brazil, so where they only have the best brands of Brazil and internationally, that's where we sell. And now one of our dreams, because my husband keeps pushing me, it's a lot on him, this, have you done it? So now I can say we're doing a line to sell in the US market, which we're really happy about it. And do you want to share more about it?
Oh yeah, we did an agreement with a lady.
Yeah, businesswoman.
A businesswoman. Blessed to our lives, and she also located in Portland, and she has 2 warehouses in the US, and she is taking our product, and we will sell through her website. We don't have much details yet, but we are the first items that we will ship or export to the US will be in 2 months maybe.
Yeah,
a little bit.
2 months.
Yeah, 2 months, and then it's kind of how we putting the Dress for Freedom in the US, something to start to become a business that is growing, striving. And because today I can say for you for sure that we built a name, and we have a story. Yesterday we were talking with Mats, and then we were talking because I love to work at Volvo because they have the Viking spirit there, and how they care about the brand. They do an amazing job taking care of the Volvo brand. And then Mats, through our conversation, make me realize that we already built a name, Dress for Freedom, and we have a beautiful story. So, and not just you don't buy Dress for Freedom just because you like the story. You buy because you love the product. Because it's hurtful for me, from a business perspective, to see a product that's not good. And you buy just for charity, and then you throw underneath your your drawer. So we need to do something beauty. We need to do it quality. We need to be consistent. That's how business is done. So, and that's why I think we are ready to go to the US. Of course, we still learn. We have a lot to do. It's a life learn journey. You guys know, you guys are ahead of me on this. So that's our dream. Start to put the Dress for Freedom name out there.
So, and it's interesting that you would bring this up. So many, when people are listening to this podcast, they're probably thinking sort of handicraft. And this is not that. This is high end.
Yes.
It would be the sort of thing, so our U.S. listeners, you might find in a Nordstrom's or, one of the really high end stores.
Yeah.
And same thing here, Brazil. For those of you who had not been to Brazil, don't think jungles. This is an incredibly modern country.
We have
incredibly modern. So this is already a successful brand right here in one of the largest economies in the world. Now taking it to the U.S., building that brand, you've got a foot in the door through this woman who's going to take at least one line.
Yes.
So for now, is that the way to buy from you in the U.S.? Would they go to her website?
Yes. Yeah. Probably you guys will hear it. Mike, you can put the Dress for Freedom link on the comments.
Yes.
And then through this website, you will connect to the store.
It'll take you to her store. Okay.
Yeah.
But ultimately, all right, so let me make that clear for the listeners.
Okay.
For right now, you will go to dressforfreedom.com, and you can find where this is going to be available in the U.S., and I would assume Canada, too, for that matter. But ultimately, they'll be able to buy through the Dress for Freedom website itself. That's part of what you're doing with your IT expertise. So for now they can buy. They don't have to wait or maybe a couple of months for things to get ready. But by the time this comes out, maybe it will be ready.
Probably towards we need to take the season. So Christmas time is a big boom.
Exactly.
So probably we will start on Christmas time to have the whole marketing.
Well, maybe we can time this to the market and get it out in the fall where people can start getting ready.
It'd be great.
So what's the dream? I know you want to get in the American market, which it makes perfect sense. Obviously, you've got a strong presence in the Brazilian market. But beyond just the market, what's the dream for the impact? Because I'm going back to what you both said the same thing. We kind of felt like you said you need to be a missionary, Amanda, and you said you felt like you need to be a pastor. But the link was you want to do good.
Yeah.
You still want to serve people and honor God. And then you love technology and you love fashion and art, and you put all that together, and this is what comes out. So what is the dream for that? What is the ultimate big thing that God has placed in your heart in this whole world of Dress for Freedom?
Well, is to have lives changed out of poverty, out of bondage, into freedom through our family, because when I say Dress for Freedom, I talk about our family because that's the same dream of my daughter. She's 6 years old, and she wants to take people out of poverty.
Wow. At 6 years old, she's thinking that way.
And she says, the other day she says, the poor will rise up, Mommy, and they will have clothes, and they will have food, and they will have a job. And I was like, that's it. She's got it. That's the whole
How do you
thing.
tell this story with a straight face? I would have tears coming down my face.
Yeah, we really feel like we have this calling, and we are in expectations. We know we can still count the lives we helped to change, and it's beautiful. But I want not to be able to count. I want such a huge number of lives being transformed and lives getting to know Jesus that I'm not even able to count.
Wow.
That's my dream.
And that's a great place for us to stop right there. Just to leave with that. We'll come back later, a couple of years from now, and we'll hear an update to the story and how the migration to the American market has gone. And I want you to be able to tell me I've lost count of the lives that have been impacted, because that's beauty, and that's the ultimate beauty God loves. So Amanda and Joiaquim, thank you, guys. We could go forever. Yeah. This has a limit.
Yeah.
But fantastic, and all the contact information and so forth will be in the show notes. Listen, rate it, share it with your friends. Yes. This is a huge thing: the blending of beauty, the rescuing and providing liberation for particularly women, but children. Yes. Your story about the little girl that her mom said, you want to buy her, it's like, it's just a father of daughters, that just crushes me. But I know it's real, and we all know it's real. And that's one of the main areas that Business's mission is impacting the world, is by providing hope and freedom for these people who seem to have no other choice. So thank you so much, Amanda and Joiaquim. Thanks, Bob, for being here. He's always he's a great rooter and one of my best friends in the world, Jonathan Brake. It's always fun to do this together, so appreciate this. Okay?
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. And we look forward to hearing. Oh, quick question for you before they sign off. Did you design that skirt you're wearing?
Yes, of course.
I thought you did.
The logo.
Logo. Yeah. Okay, we're going to get a picture of you. So those of you listening, we'll have a picture available of Joiaquim and Amanda, so you can see who they are, but you can also see the skirt, because some of you ladies are going to go, where can I get that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Business as Mission podcast. We invite you to become part of the story by supporting the BAM podcast at patreon.com/BAM Stories. There's a link in the notes with this episode. For more information, go to thirdpathinitiative.com or tryventure.com. Please share this podcast and give us a review wherever you listen.